Hello and welcome to Don't Bury the Lead. We recap WWE SmackDown every Friday night after the bell. But tonight is a very special night where we are recapping WrestleMania 40. Happened over the course of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday night. And my name is Jonathan Dell. I'm joined by Dom Scarcella. Dom, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
It's the granddaddy of them all, and it's so much that they can't even do it in one night. It's got to be 2 4-hour chunks across a Saturday and Sunday. There's a lot to talk about. Without further ado, John, don't bury the lead. What's our top story from WrestleMania 40?
Dom, we don't ever bury the lead. And let me tell you something. Our top story from WrestleMania 40 is Cody Rhodes finishes the proverbial story and beats Roman Reigns to win the title. And Roman Reigns is finally knocked out after years and years and years of having this title. This was kind of felt like a foregone conclusion. I had mentioned this before, but they did a lot of interesting stuff throughout the course of the match. Very good sports entertainment, if you will. Dom, what did you think of this match here?
1,316. That was Roman Reigns' title reign in days. So yeah, more than 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was quite as long as Hulk Hogan's reigns, and it also trails Bob Backlund and Bruno Sammartino, but by far it's the longest title reign, world title reign, especially in the modern era of pro wrestling, in the prime time era of pro wrestling from the 90s onward. We'll say. So this had to be a huge deal to get the belt off of Roman Reigns. And I mean, I'll go through what had to happen here. John Cena, The Rock, the Uso brothers, Solo Sikoa, Seth Rollins dressed as the Shield, and perhaps the pop of the night, perhaps the pop of both nights, when the lights went out and you just heard the bell toll, and The Undertaker appears in the ring when the lights come back on. So even if this was a foregone conclusion that Cody has to win, I don't think, especially from the crowd reactions of those live in Philadelphia for this event, I don't think anybody expected the details that the WWE put into this. Whatever you think about it being a foregone conclusion that Cody wins, the WWE knows how to put on a live event, don't they? I mean, they made this interesting and surprising as to how they got there.
You know, Dom, I had this low on my list of matches I wanted to see because I was like, I just know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, foot and mouth right now after watching that match, it was a banger. And it had all the fun, little goofy callbacks. You had like John Cena and Solo Sikoa who wrestled.
Yes.
That's the last time we saw them. And then those were the two that were matched up. You had The Rock just destroy Cena, but then the Undertaker kind of come back and do his mystical magic. And also I noticed when Undertaker did his thing, the lights went out, everybody sort of scattered out of the ring one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's like part of the magic or the mystique of Undertaker is he's able to get everybody out of the ring, but it was really cool. And the crowd really, I mean, the crowd was freaking out when that stuff was happening. And, you know, we'll talk about this later, but sometimes there's points of the shows where the crowd wasn't so hot. So it was good to see them come back to this.
Yeah, well, let's go through all of the cameos in this match late. Now, Cody does wind up winning it with 3 crossroads in order to get the pinfall. This match goes, I think, 30 minutes, maybe 30 and a half, somewhere in there. So this was by considerable amount the longest match of night 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it was longer than everything on night 1, except for another match that we'll get to. But it starts off with about 9 minutes to what winds up being 9 minutes to go. So about 21 minutes into the match, Cody hits a crossroads. He's going to set up another one. That's when Jimmy Uso hits the ring and super kicks Cody. And then that brings out Jay. And you're like, okay, maybe we could have figured this.
Mm-hmm.
That if one of the Uso twins got involved, the other one would do it. And eventually Jay spears Jimmy off of the ramp because Jimmy went up to meet him.
That looked crazy too.
Didn't it? Like speared him off the ramp. They both went through a couple of covered tables that were set up on the floor because the ramp is elevated from the entrance down to the ring. So that was a great looking spot. And those guys are basically out of it at that point. Then let's see here. Roman then tries intimidating the ref, which he had been doing a few times. Applies the guillotine, but Cody winds up tumbling them to the floor and then spearing Roman through the barricade. Now Cody's got the advantage again. So you're wondering, okay, we haven't seen Solo Sikoa all day.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be there. And sure enough, Cody hits 2 crossroads and Solo Sikoa breaks up the third one with a spike. But Cody kicks out of the cover after Solo drags Roman onto Cody. So far, it's not surprising. I mean, bloodline rules. Okay, the bloodline's been involved. Then, as you alluded to, we get our first wow of the match. John Cena's music hits. Huge pop for Cena. He takes out Solo Sikoa. Attitude adjustment on Roman Reigns. Attitude adjustment on Solo Sikoa through the Spanish announce table. So we've gotten the Spanish announce table involved here. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then The Rock's music hits. We thought we'd see The Rock because, again, this is bloodline rules and The Rock is back and The Rock's got to be involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here comes The Rock. He comes to the ring, stares down Cena and takes out Cena. Big rock bottom. Takes off the weight belt, and here's where we get maybe our second surprise. The Shield music hits, and people are going like, what could this be? Question for you. Did it cross your mind at all that, oh my goodness, Jon Moxley's back as Dean Ambrose? Or
that was the whole reason I thought they did the Shield music. I thought that not Seth Rollins dressed as the Shield, who I just saw 3 hours ago.
Okay, so you thought it was the return of Dean Ambrose, like Jon Moxley. Has Jon Moxley been out of action briefly in AEW for a month or so?
I haven't seen him in a minute, but he's there, and he's pretty adamant that he doesn't. Well, so was CM Punk, but he was pretty adamant that he was not going back to WWE.
So it was there in your mind when the Shield, because it wasn't Seth Rollins' music that hit. It was specifically the Shield music that hit, and the Shield that went up on their big video boards. And so it winds up being not Moxley returning as Dean Ambrose, but it's Seth Rollins now in his third match of the weekend.
Right.
This time dressed as Seth Rollins from the Shield.
Mm-hmm.
And, he sneaks into the ring with a chair, and it looks like he's going after The Rock, but Roman has now recovered enough to Superman punch Seth Rollins. So now The Rock is standing tall. Roman is standing tall, and that's when the bell happens. This seemed like the biggest pop of the match, biggest pop of the night. Right?
Oh, yeah.
The Undertaker's thing.
Mm-hmm. No, for
not
sure.
only is that special, and not only is that very much tied to WrestleMania, but The Undertaker, he had not been featured at all. It's like John Cena was here last summer and for some stuff in the summer, some stuff in the fall. Obviously, these other guys are on the active roster. The Rock has been back for a couple of months for the road to WrestleMania. The Undertaker hasn't been involved at all. He's just hanging out doing his podcast. So The Undertaker was a big surprise. And that leads to, now that The Rock is taken out, we have, and this is going to be interesting. Roman grabs a chair. Cody's down and Seth is down, and he looks at both of them. He hits Seth Rollins with the chair instead of Cody. And that allows Cody to recover enough so that when Roman now goes for a spear on Cody, he blocks it with a kick to the midsection, and that's what sets up the 3 crossroads. So Roman going after Seth instead of Cody. So a few neat things to unpack here. Was this special enough? We've talked about whoever wins the belt from Roman, it's not only going to be a big burden to carry, but it has to be done in such a way that's spectacular. Was this spectacular enough?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was really impressed with everything they did. It wasn't necessarily the wrestling that got you there; it was the sports entertaining, if you will. But it was really good sports entertaining.
Yeah.
That got you there. It had all the entrances of all the different people being involved, and it kind of made it was a really, really, really good schmoz, right? So,
Yes.
but it
It
was
was
really
fun. This was the thing we talked about. Would you, even if it's a foregone conclusion, do you want to watch the match unfold? And we both said it was on our top 5, though it wasn't up at the top. Would you have elevated this match in retrospect?
oh yeah, for sure. Right now,
Okay.
I think
Where would you have put it? Like, how high does it go from 5? Does
maybe
it climb
2,
to number 1?
maybe 1 or 2. Oh, based
Okay,
off of
so,
what I had
this
before.
this impressed you.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
impressed me as well. I don't think I would have elevated it all the way to number 1 because I still like grappling, but this was cool. This was the something different that I obviously didn't know about going into the match, that I just was giving the WWE the benefit of the doubt that something would happen.
Yeah.
And so I put it, I think, number 3 on my list.
There was
I think this delivered.
Yeah, I think that, there were some good spots of the regular wrestling that was being evolved there.
Sure,
Like,
what's
for
your
example,
favorite?
the table spot was great when the table's out on the floor and Roman just puts it back and everyone boos him because everybody loves to see the tables and he's like,
Yes, the folding table being dragged out from under the ring. Yeah, and then he taunted the crowd.
no, I'm not taking the table out.
Hmm.
He says to them, one thing he did is he said to the camera, "It's my company. I'm gonna send your ass to Hollywood like the rest of the guys because they're all they're all on TV now and stuff like that."
Uh-huh.
I thought that was really good, and the fisherman suplex was good. So I liked some of the stuff that was going on for the wrestling, but then eventually, once the wrestling was over, you could see it got elevated by the different entrances of the different people coming in to interfere. And all hell broke loose. How about you?
This was an impressive effort by Cody and especially Roman, because there always still is a question, at least in my mind, how healthy is Roman Reigns? So for him to wrestle back-to-back nights in long matches, I thought was impressive on his part. Lots of punishing rest holds, which I wrote down because that's good wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Early on. I was also pleasantly surprised that they kept it a one-on-one match for most of it. We got to see each of these guys perform as athletes.
Yeah.
It wasn't a schmoz right from the beginning, which I liked. And it wasn't like The Rock is the special referee as he had teased.
Yeah.
There wasn't Jimmy and Solo at ringside pulling Cody's feet every time he got too close to the ropes.
Right.
So it wasn't, they didn't turn it into a joke. They let it be a WrestleMania worthy main event, and then brought in all the cameos that led to the finish, and I thought it was good. Both men got to their feet and were standing, and they're doing the exchange of punches, and it's boo. So LA Knights become Ric Flair. Like anybody does a chop and everybody goes woo, right, even though it's not Ric Flair in the match. And it's almost becoming that way with LA Knight. Two guys square off and start exchanging strikes. And it's for the baby face and boo for the heel. So they're getting the boos. The only exceptions to that is the Usos, where it becomes yeet and boo. But we got a boo exchange there. I like the match. I like the creativity of the booking towards the end. And I do like the finish. And it's also clear, I don't know if this is part of the lead still or if this is the follow, but they are burying Vince McMahon. This entire weekend was about, it's a new era in the WWE. It was, it's the Paul Levesque era for Triple H.
Right.
And they're doing that. They did that at the beginning of day one when they announced Triple H coming through. I don't know if that was evident to the people in the live crowd in Philadelphia, but on TV, they were just gushing over the fact that this is a new era. It's the Paul Levesque era as he's walking down. And then post-match, Cody's talking about it too. This is the new era. He calls out Bruce Pritchard and Triple H. They both come down. He says it's a brand new era in the WWE. They're burying Vince. Like they're trying to move on as quickly as they can from him. Maybe that was part of the title switch here, is that Roman Reigns was always the guy that Vince McMahon wanted to push to the moon.
Yeah.
So maybe this was the right time to get the belt off of him.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's new now. So did you get any of that sense at all that they're just really trying hard to pivot away from any mention of Vince McMahon and anything that might have Vince McMahon's odor on it?
Yeah, and I'm gonna change the screen here because it's more the follow stuff, but I agree. I actually thought this is weird not having Vince here. And I know he's not allowed. I guess I know he did some crappy stuff, and he's
one way of putting it.
Yeah, right. He's done some crappy stuff, and he's been like a thorn in the side of the industry for many, many years, and clearly has made a lot of enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was strange not having him come out and kick the show off, because he typically is the guy that does that, and he is pro wrestling at the end of the day. So you don't see him a lot on TV, but you'd always see him at WrestleMania, proud of his achievement, super proud and happy of his achievement. He loves WrestleMania. But yeah, he just wasn't there for it, and he's still alive. He's not dead. So he is just metaphorically dead. He's been killed by the WWE.
How about continue with the follow here? Post-match, the people celebrating in the ring with Cody Rhodes, because these seem to be the baby faces that are going to get pushed. It was obviously Jey Uso was already out there. John Cena was already out there for at least the cameo, so he's going to be back in there. Seth Rollins was also still out there. But Sami Zayn comes down. Kevin Owens comes down. Randy Orton comes down. And LA Knight comes down. And it's Sami and Jey who lift Cody onto their shoulders at first. So talk about these guys, because you brought up that if the belt switches, which we thought it would, what are the storylines going forward for Cody Rhodes?
Right.
So, do you see rivalries coming from this bunch that was in there celebrating with Cody, or is it going to be other heels that are going after Cody now?
It's got to be other heels.
Okay.
I think that was just one of those. And we've seen stuff like that in the past with traditional baby faces winning, and the locker room loves them, so they go out and they lift them up and they say great job and all that. So I don't think that was necessarily a sign that there's going to be rivalries built from that. Maybe with Seth Rollins, because they were kind of had an exchange of words.
Yes. They've been frenemies for a few months.
And I wouldn't be surprised if somehow CM Punk gets involved there, but it looks like he's already set up a program with Drew McIntyre. But yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it was pretty cool to see everybody hit the ring, and then including the family, and have that extended celebration. Bruce Pritchard hit the ring, then Triple H hits the ring. That
Yeah, it was good television. It was a good way to go off the air on the event. Let's bring it back to the main event on Saturday, which you were live in attendance for, and which helped set up this main event from Sunday. You really wanted to see that match, and I will say, I was pleasantly surprised by that one. I would have put that one, in retrospect, that one now makes my top 5. And I'll tell you which one I would have bounced out of it later when we sort of get to the more rapid fire of stuff. But I now would put that tag match, The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, which went 44 minutes. It was 2.5 times as long as anything else that happened on night one.
It was crazy, right?
The longest other thing other than that was like 17 minutes in that range. This went 44.5 minutes. Just crazy stuff. But you were there live in person. Did it seem to you that it was worth it how that played out? And obviously, The Rock and Roman Reigns win to set up Bloodline rules the next night. You were there in person. Tell everybody tell our fans who are in the live chat or people who are watching us in our archive on YouTube, what it was like to be there. And if you were there in person, tell us in the chat, tell us in the comments what you thought of being there in person on either day, especially if you were there for night one and saw this tag match that was the longest match of WrestleMania. And, to take it away, John.
Yeah. I would have to say that I liked the match. It somehow didn't feel that long.
Okay.
And I think it didn't feel that long because it wasn't that late. Like, there wasn't a lot of other stuff that happened. Just, I was worried we're going to hit like 11:30, 12, and then this match is going to start, and we're going to be here till 1 a.m. We've seen stuff like that before.
Yep.
But this night one started at 7 p.m. for real, 7 p.m.
Yep, not at 8. They made it 7, and both nights lasted about 4 hours. These were done at 11 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, which is great because I think in the past, by the time the main event hits, the crowd is so tired and it takes away from it, and they're just trying to get as much. That was always like trying to get more minutes of people on the networks. That would always ruin the main event. So like the matches before the main event felt like the main event. Then by the time the main hit, you're like, oh my god, I'm so tired. Is this over? So how about you? Did you get that impression watching it at home? Were you like, wow, this is taking forever?
I'm a habitual clock watcher just because, I use that as a comparison of, okay, how much have they invested in these people by how much airtime are they giving them?
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect it to go 44.5 minutes, but it did. I mean, this was a long match and very intriguing to me. This ends with The Rock pinning Cody Rhodes, not Roman Reigns pinning Cody Rhodes. Not The Rock or Roman Reigns pinning Seth Rollins. This ended with The Rock pinning Cody Rhodes. What does that tell us? I mean, if we want to go into some maybe
fantasy booking
details of the match. So I thought, for instance, The Rock looked pretty good in this match for what he was able to do. It was a good match.
I was wondering,
he looked athletic. He looked mobile. I guess he looked strong enough. I mean, Cody and Seth are each smaller wrestlers compared to Rock and Roman, so you'd expect Rock and Roman to be able to handle them with some power moves. So, but I thought Rock looked athletic. He looked like he belonged in a wrestling ring. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. In real life, he looked huge. He was like noticeably like, wow, this dude's a monster. Yep. And I thought he moved around really well in there. And of course, the entrance was pretty crazy for him with the lit up Brahma Bull and everything like that. So,
do you have any indication what belt he was carrying with him? Because he's not a current champion.
I didn't know. I actually didn't notice that he was carrying a belt, but I just read online later that he was carrying a belt.
He's carrying a belt. I didn't catch what it was for or what he was doing. I mean, did he just feel left out? Is this like Ted DiBiase just creating his own belt because the WWE wouldn't give him a real one?
Right. Does it have something to do with the fact that like it's like he wants a belt and he owns a company, so he could just make himself a belt? You know?
He made himself a WWE replica belt like they're doing for sports teams now.
Right.
He just got himself made one. He went down to, the factory and said, can you make The Rock a belt? And so
in our indie wrestling show, we used to have someone that would bring a belt and wear it out, even though he never wrestled and wasn't a champion. It's like, all right, he just doesn't get it. But okay, that's fine. You could do that. But do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't think I remember that, but it does not surprise me that people would just wear a belt to a wrestling show. People wear jerseys to football and baseball and basketball games. They're not getting in the game.
Right.
They wear them
Right.
to hockey games. They're not getting on the ice. I mean, at least nobody I don't think, wears their skates to a hockey game, but
Right.
so yeah, people bringing a belt out to the show, even though why do you have a belt? They're like, oh, I'm the champ. Okay.
Right. Anything else about this match?
Uh, good wrestling. I don't see Seth Rollins a lot because he's on Raw and he's been on Raw for the duration that we've been doing Don't Bury the Lead. But I'm just more and more impressed with Seth Rollins every time I see him. He might be the best overall star wrestler that they have, pro wrestler that they have in the WWE. He can get it done in the ring. He's a great personality. He's versatile for these persona changes. He's believable as a heel, then he's believable as a babyface. He's believable as a frenemy. He's a chameleon without being, a tweener who's lost.
Yeah.
Like Seth Rollins doesn't appear to be lost. He just appears to have hit a sweet spot with his persona where he's so good in the ring that people just appreciate him, I think. And I appreciate how great Seth Rollins is.
He did a great job this weekend, specifically putting a lot of people over, doing the right thing to put the people over, and just being over with the crowd. And then his awesome entrance on the Sunday show was amazing with all the mummers. That was great. But
a lot of Philadelphia stuff here, right?
Yeah, no,
he gets the mummers doing his thing. Roman Reigns got the Philadelphia school all-star choir or something.
That must have been so cool for the kids, right?
Yeah, except that it was 45 degrees out, and
right.
They've got to. I could tell you from being out some cold outdoor gigs, being a guitar player, it's tough for the fine motor skills to work when it gets chilly. So I kind of feel bad for the kids who got to really play. Like violin is tough. There's no frets on that fretboard. That's all finger strength.
Yeah.
And accuracy as far as hitting exactly on that neck where you need to. So that was not easy for those talented teenagers to do. But yeah, that was cool. There was another mummerish style band that did Drew McIntyre's entrance. So yeah, there was a lot of Philly stuff going on. This night.
There was some Scottish band, or Scottish, whatever you would call that.
Bagpipers, yeah,
bagpiping stuff. So yeah, I thought that was all really great. And I think that mummers was the perfect thing for Seth because he dresses like a weirdo. So I'm like,
he might as well be a mummer, right?
right. That's what the gimmick is. I never knew it till now. Oh, he's a mummer.
Seth Mummer Rollins. Get rid of the freaking. It's Seth Mummer Rollins.
Yeah. So, his entrance. That entrance was cool. And anything else from the tag match?
No. I mean, a match that goes this long, it's almost ridiculous trying to do
play-by-play,
spots and play-by-play because there's so many false finishes, so many weird things. I'm about done with this one. I thought this was well played. I would have moved this up on my list. This goes to. I'm gonna say it goes to 5 only because the 4 others I had on my list, other than the one I'd bumped for it, I also really enjoyed. But in retrospect, this match should be on my top 5. So I would have put it on there. You had it as your number 2. Would you have moved this one up, or would you have moved it maybe down a little? Because you said the main on Sunday moved up. Yeah.
So I think it probably hangs around number 2. Okay. Number 3. Maybe I'd move it to 3.
Okay.
And the main is 2.
Okay, so you're number 1 on your preview list. Let's go there. Now we're into the follow. Your number 1 was LA Knight versus AJ Styles. LA Knight wins. Did it live up to what you had anticipated? It was on my list too. I think I had it as my second best.
Yeah. I don't think it was as good as the main event, either main event of the night.
Okay.
But I thought it was still really good. It probably still is on my list, but not at number 1. I had high hopes for it. How about you?
I really enjoyed it. It only
Okay.
went 12 and a half minutes, but I really enjoyed this match because it was, and this almost happens at WrestleMania where you get so tired of false finishes all over the place.
Yeah.
This match had offensive wrestling, defensive wrestling. AJ Styles went after the back of LA Knight's left knee, his the leg area, the calf area, which made sense. LA Knight sold it the whole match. So there was grappling, reversals. I like this match. They didn't do too many false finishes. I just enjoyed how these guys performed. I mean, they only gave them 12 and a half minutes, but
Right.
it was a really good 12 and a half minutes. I don't regret having this as on my list, and I don't have regret having it as number 2 on my list either. AJ at one point went for the calf crusher. He got to the ropes. They did a little, and this match was short enough where I will call some spots. I love AJ Styles doing a German suplex, holding on, and then doing a
Oh,
face plant for
yeah.
a 2 count at about the 5-minute mark.
That
That
was great.
takes some strength. These guys were evenly matched size wise. That takes some strength from AJ Styles. That looked really good. LA Knight, for a guy who's not considered a high flyer, he did a springing tornado DDT out of a second rope,
Right.
which looked really good. He did a variation on his leap up to the top rope for a superplex, where this time AJ Styles was turned around. So LA Knight leaped up and hit a German suplex. A German superplex, which I can't recall seeing before, probably because it's got to be terrifying for the guys doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because whereas a regular superplex, you're dropping really feet first, for a German suplex off the top turnbuckle, each guy is dropping precariously close to head first onto the mat.
Yeah.
But these guys executed it beautifully. Neither guy was injured from it. It looks spectacular. Fantastic.
And,
I love everything they did. AJ kept working over the leg, around the ring post, across the ring apron. LA Knight exposing the floor beneath the padding, tried for a power bomb, but AJ reversed it into a backdrop. They did the 10 count where LA Knight barely made it back in.
I thought that was awesome.
Right?
I thought that was really. I think the first of all, being in that stadium, I don't think you really realize just how little and insignificant everybody looks down there. Like,
Okay.
you're so far away. So like when they pulled up the mat, you can see them pull up the mat, and you're like, oh, okay, something's gonna happen. Then you
Okay.
get the crowd doing the 10 counts. You get the crowd into it. A lot of people weren't doing enough to play to the crowd, which kind of left them to be a little bit more on the quiet side, especially night one. I know it was colder, but I think they weren't doing all that they could.
Okay. Let me go through the finish here. You tell me if any of this stands out to you or if it was worth noting. I thought it was a really good extended sequence into the finish. I wonder how much prep went into this match, because I don't know that this could have been called on the fly and have been as smooth as this was. When LA Knight gets back into the floor barely on that 10 count, AJ Styles still has the advantage. He goes for a springboard 450. And like, what an athlete to do something like that. But LA Knight gets the knees up.
Mhm.
They both regain their feet, and we get the boo yeah slugfest, which ends with the heel getting the advantage.
Mhm.
AJ Styles ends that with a great looking Pele kick. But LA Knight ducks the springboard. AJ blocks a blunt force trauma, sets up a Styles clash, but LA Knight blocks that by kicking his feet against AJ Styles' collarbones and maybe the side of his head. So LA Knight escapes the Styles clash.
Mhm.
Charges at AJ, but AJ gets the feet up in the corner twice. Now AJ goes for the phenomenal forearm springboard again, but LA Knight hits the ropes just as AJ's getting up there, which is a callback to their fatal four-way, where Roman Reigns threw LA Knight into the ropes, which threw off AJ Styles' balance, and AJ Styles wound up getting pinned by Roman Reigns back then. LA hits the ropes. AJ gut busts across the top rope, and that's how LA Knight sets up the blunt force trauma for the pinfall. This was a really good ending sequence that wasn't false finish, kick out, false finish, kick out, false finish, kick out. High spot, no sell, high spot, no sell. It was a really good sequence where each guy sold.
Right.
I enjoyed watching this match.
Yeah, I thought they did such a good job keeping the crowd into it. There were some people that weren't, and like everything LA Knight does, yeah, the whole time, crowd's eating them up.
Mhm.
So and I think they finished at the right time. It wasn't too long. They weren't,
No.
They kind of got to where they needed to be, and it almost was like a not surprising finish, but it's like a quick finish. He hits him with the blunt force trauma, and kind of out of nowhere, if you will, a little bit Randy Orton style,
Mhm.
and they go home. So that was a really good match. I'm gonna go on my list here. So
Okay, you don't want to go to my number one and ask me if it lived up to it?
oh yeah, your number one I saw in real life. We
You
have
saw in real life. It was Saturday. It was the runner up to the
Yeah.
finish there.
yeah, and it is Gunther
Sami
versus
Zayn
Sami
beats
Zayn
Gunther
and
for
Sami.
the Intercontinental Championship. I enjoyed this match. I don't know if I'd still keep it at number one,
Mhm.
but I'm not like ashamed that I was looking forward to this match and put
It's
it at number
one
one.
of the best matches at the pay-per-view of either night, and maybe the best actual wrestling match.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. It was I put this as number one because you and I were basically dueling cliches here. We haven't seen Gunther and Sami Zayn in a while because they've been on Raw for almost a year now. Because the
Right.
draft happens like a month after WrestleMania. So you were, out of sight, out of mind. I was absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Right.
So I wanted to see this match because I wanted to see Gunther and Sami wrestle. I thought it was a good match. I was surprised by how Gunther wrestled in the match. And maybe they've been building to this on Raw because Gunther was always the ring general who was disgusted with people who didn't have respect for how you were supposed to wrestle as a professional. And, all these months later, I'm seeing Gunther at WrestleMania, and he's preening around the ring, trash talking with the crowd, taking way too much time, taking his opponent lightly. I'm like, is this Gunther? So there's been a change in the Gunther character, the Gunther persona, since last you and I were watching him regularly. And I wonder if this was the right time to switch the belt because of that. Because now it sets up Gunther for maybe a comeback where, he had lost his way and he's got to get back to being the ring general. Like, it cost him his championship, his record-setting intercontinental championship reign. Sami was fantastic as always. Sami Zayn is the master of selling in a variety of ways. Like everybody sells by just like doing a backdrop.
Mhm.
Like everybody bumps the exact same way. They get hit no matter where they get hit. They just fall flat on their back.
Yeah.
Sami doesn't do that.
No.
Sami sells almost like he's in a fight.
Yeah, you're right. He is so good at selling like that. It's a great point. When
He's
he falls
good.
down, it looks so natural rather than like, oh, he's doing a back bump. It just looks
Yep.
like no, he's falling down in a fight.
Like he'll drop to his back if he gets really struck from the front like that. But there's other times where he'll buckle his knees. If he gets hit
Yeah.
from the right way, he'll fall to the side. Like the greatest Sami Zayn knee buckle was when the Usos interrupted the tag match, Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns against Sami and Kevin Owens. And they went to super kick Sami Zayn and he just knee buckled and they hit Solo instead. Like
Mhm.
Sami is so good at selling and dropping and bumping in ways that aren't just your standard kick your feet out and drop to your back.
Yeah.
I loved everything about this match. Gunther being like this arrogant prick was a slightly bit off-putting to me, but he is the heel. And if that's sort of the kayfabe reason why he lost, I'm 100% behind it, even though it was like a little jarring for me to see at first. This was a great match. It went 15 and a half minutes. So it wasn't even the longest non-main event match that anybody would have seen. What did it you've already mentioned that where you were seeing and in this huge football stadium that it's sometimes harder to pick up the details. What did this match look like for you being live in attendance there on night one?
It was awesome.
It was okay. God, I'm glad to hear that.
This
It was
probably was
awesome
one of
on
the best
TV.
one. It was a shame the crowd really started to get cooking toward the end of the show, and
Mhm.
this is the one that really brought him there. Gunther
Good.
and Sami Zayn. Everybody loved Sammy; they were going crazy for him.
Okay.
And Gunther is just such a great worker. And
Mhm.
you would think that his style might be too boring or something like that for that we needed some more weapons or tables or something crazy to get them going. No, that wasn't the case. The brain buster was crazy at the end that Sami Zayn did to Gunther when he hits a brain buster onto the top rope,
Yes.
or I should say the corner there.
Yep.
And that's when it was like, whoa, he's gonna win. And then he did. He went and won, which was really cool.
The brainbuster, I don't know. It looked really cool to you in the stadium.
Yeah.
On TV, not so much because that's a really dangerous move. And
Mhm.
like Gunther's head goes nowhere near the mat,
Yeah.
not even his shoulders.
I think that brain buster was supposed to be on not the mat, but he did the brain buster onto the post.
One of the turnbuckles on the way down.
Turnbuckles, yeah.
Okay, I may have to rewatch it because I was a little confused watching on TV as to what that move was, because Sammy hit the mat like butt first, and Gunther like didn't really hit the mat. So I was like going, well, what was that? And the the announce table just goes brain buster. I was like, okay, it was a brain buster.
Yeah. No, I think because I already saw some stuff about this move, and some people were said it was a botch, and then other people said no, it's a brain buster because he's hitting the post or the turnbuckle with him, but
like the bottom turnbuckle or something.
Yeah, like the
that.
middle one, but yeah. So that's what I thought, and it looked really good in the ring. And then they were showing the wife on the big screen, which was good. This one looked good at the stadium.
Did you catch some of the video package they did before this on the stadium? Were they showing it on the big board there? Because it was Sami Zayn and his wife and his young son backstage before Sammy made his entrance.
Oh well, I was in the bathroom. I took a bathroom break. So.
I don't know what the live crowd got to see this, but watching Peacock Network, we got to see Sammy and his wife in the back, and Sammy telling her, don't let him watch this. This may get ugly, or something to that effect. Like, don't let the little kid watch this.
Yeah.
And then his wife quickly was out there ringside for the match, which was cool. Chad Gable meets Sammy backstage, and I guess they had been teasing that Chad Gable is now Sammy's coach and was supposed to accompany him to the ring. And Chad says, no, you've got this on your own, and you've always had it, But just remember, you owe me a favor. Kind of if you win, kind of you owe me a favor. And just as Sammy is getting to gorilla position, he turns the corner, the camera's following him. There's Kevin Owens staring at him. And so that was a neat moment with Sammy and Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens like pumping him up to go out there and do it.
Right.
So that was fun. And then Sammy goes through the curtain, and he's out there, and Sammy's everybody's favorite underdog. So it was kind of surprising that the underdog wins. But I don't think anyone's disappointed because Sammy's such a good worker that, and people care about him because they appreciate watching him work. I think Sami Zayn he's really shed the comedy jobber thing from only 2 WrestleManias ago.
Oh, totally.
And even as his time in the bloodline early on.
Yeah. No, I think he's perfectly positioned, and as a guy that takes the IC title, I have no problems. I wanted him to win the real title, and I don't think that would have been the main title. But
the crowd is invested in Sammy. They want to watch Sammy. He draws eyeballs, and he's a believable enough worker in the ring.
Right.
So this is a good call, switching the belt here and the way they did it then.
Yeah, and did you catch the days?
666.
666, baby.
I may have mentioned that in our preview that if this match is on Saturday, it'll be 666.
You did, and then they mentioned it. I was like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yes,
liked it. I mean, that's just a little accident of the numbers, but
yeah.
I don't think they were planning this on, whatever that random day in June was when Gunther beat Ricochet. Hey, in 2 WrestleManias, it'll be 666 days.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Like, they didn't do the math that far out.
Yeah, I like this one, and I would have kept it there. Anything else from your list that you thought should have remained there or should have been bumped off?
I have one more match I want to talk about.
Go for it.
Io Sky versus Bailey, and Io Sky knocks off Bailey.
Huh.
So
Bailey knocks off Io Sky.
Excuse me. Bailey knocks off Io Sky. Excuse me. I initially said this might steal one of the nights, and I feel like it did.
You think it did? Okay, this was the third to last. So it was Io Sky Bailey. Then it was so this was second to last on night 2.
This should have been dead in the water. They were right before the Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns match. The 2 women. It feels like they were like kind of the B squad there for the women's title match, and these 2 lit it up. And I thought they might, and I think they wrestled probably the best wrestling match of either night.
It was fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It gave them 14 and a half minutes.
Yeah. And I think it was Io Sky's best match she's ever had.
Yep.
And you had the right winner with Bailey winning.
Okay. Have you seen other Bailey matches from further back in his career? Where does this rank as a Bailey match?
Bailey's best match I've ever seen was her versus Sasha Banks in NXT.
Okay, I've heard that that's apparently a very famous match that sort of forced women's wrestling into the spotlight in WWE.
There's a pretty big argument to be made that's one of the best women's match ever. Because it kind of made that era, or it kind of made modern day wrestling what it is.
Yep, 2 of the 4 horsewomen. Yeah, okay. Bailey lived up to everything in this match, yay or nay?
Yeah, she was awesome. And I love the way that they kept kind of teasing, like the way that Io was able to continuously reverse a lot of the finishers that Bailey was going for. So it kept looking like Bailey's going to hit it, and then boom, she would just snake her way out of it.
Did you expect that from Io Sky, that she could wrestle defensively? Because to me, as a guy who likes watching pro wrestling, I like defensive wrestling. I can't stand where everything is just offense and spot fest. I like defensive wrestling. I like counters.
Yeah.
And to watch Io Sky do that, I wasn't sure that she had that in her to this extent. I thought it was just so good.
If you like counters, she put on a clinic. Because
Right?
there were so many different variations of counters that they were going through that, my head was spinning a little bit, which is good, positively. I was like, oh, man, they're really doing some complicated spots here, and they were nailing them all. They weren't missing any of them. So
No, there were no botches here. I mean, so even though Io loses this match, she wrestles her best match that we've ever seen as far as showing everybody the variety of things she can do. She's known as like, the genius of the sky. And like you almost get pigeonholed into that where it's a cliche. It's like, oh, that's the one who backflips off the top of the cage.
But you don't want to just do that, right? You gotta
like she can do so much more. I think she comes out of this match looking like such an all-around elite pro wrestler. As if the women's division in WWE needed any more all-around 5-star performers.
Right.
If there was any doubt, Io Sky is another one of them.
She's the way that she was able to put that match together, I go as far to say is it was career making for her. Like, I think that she went from just one of the girls or one of the mid-card girls that they're kind of giving an opportunity to have the belt to that's a star. So I think that's really where she was headed to.
I'm going to segue here if you're done with this match.
Yeah, I'm done.
You want to talk about a career-making match where someone loses. How about all the way back to Puerto Rico last year?
Yeah.
When Bad Bunny beat Damian Priest.
Ah, right.
And I believe I was gushing, and maybe it was effusive at the time, but I said Damian Priest is a star right now. I know he lost, but Damian Priest is a star right now. This WrestleMania ends with Damian Priest as the World Heavyweight Champion. You've alluded to Seth Rollins before and Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, who are all involved in the leadoff match of night 2 for the World Heavyweight Championship. Is this the right time to put the belt on Damian Priest? Because Drew McIntyre beats Seth Rollins and then starts taunting CM Punk, who was at the announce table for guest commentary. And at some point, Drew McIntyre is taunting CM Punk so much, stands over him on the announce table, that CM Punk just sweeps his leg, takes off the brace around his surgically repaired right arm, beats Drew McIntyre with it, and then suddenly Damian Priest comes running down to cash in his money in the bank. The bell rings. 10 seconds later, you've got a South of Heaven choke slam, and Damian Priest wins the World Heavyweight Championship. This, to me, is an example of they almost waited too long, but then they didn't.
Yeah.
And it vindicates selfishly me looking at Damian Priest in Puerto Rico last year, even though he lost the Bad Bunny batch, and going, this guy's a star to look that good losing a match.
Right.
I think he's a star. They earlier in night 1 that you saw had gotten the tag belts off of them. So now like Damian Priest was kind of free to really hone in on cashing in Money in the Bank. Yeah. And I thought he did. I thought it was a good move. There was enough of that surprise element to it.
No, this was great sports entertainment with the whole.
Do you like the call? Do you like Damian Priest? Is it the right time? Do you like what set it up that he cashed in on Drew McIntyre and not on Seth?
The only thing that's goofy is he didn't cash it in on Seth.
Okay, so you wanted the cash in on Seth.
Well, the only reason I thought it was goofy that they didn't cash in on Seth because they kind of buried Seth because he lost. And then you're going to have, now you're going to have Seth as the guy that lost, and then he can't even get a rematch of the title because he doesn't even, McIntyre had it for like 60 seconds or whatever.
Okay. I thought they buried Drew.
Yeah.
Like not Seth. Like Seth wrestled the night before and was already hurt coming into this. Seth Rollins wrestled 2 matches in a row on WrestleMania. It was the last match of night 1 and then the first match of night 2. So I thought they did enough with the Seth Rollins storyline that him losing wasn't going to take any of the shine off of him. I thought they almost buried Drew.
Yeah. I guess you could work your way around it. He wrestled a full match and then he got a cheap shot from CM Punk. But also, like, CM Punk's supposed to be injured and he's getting his ass kicked by him. He's like a broken arm. So there was also that aspect of it. But
was CM Punk faking, or did he just heal really quickly, or did they just protect the heck out of him in this sequence?
Yeah, I don't know I don't know what the hell that was.
Maybe the arm was heavily wrapped under the long sleeve shirt. When he did use the brace to hit Drew, I noticed he swung with his left arm, not his injured right arm. So maybe it was just a good job of protecting CM Punk there.
Mm-hmm.
Who wound up joining the night 1 Cody festivities and coming into the ring later. I was like, oh, what's this guy doing here?
Right.
But yeah, we could have a CM Punk versus Drew thing set up right away. Seth may be moving on to other things. The other reason why I thought it was interesting that they had Damian Priest cash in on Drew McIntyre instead of Seth Rollins is Seth is a babyface.
Mm-hmm.
If Damian Priest cashes in on a babyface, okay, he's a heel. If he cashes in on a heel who just beat up a guy who was already injured and wrestled the night before, then it almost makes Damian Priest look babyface. So what's going on with Judgment Day here? Is this is this a second Rhea Ripley case where, by himself, he's babyface, but in Judgment Day, suddenly he's back to being a heel? Like, that might work with one person, Rhea, But does it work with like 40% of the group now?
Right. I don't know. Yeah, Judgment Day is somewhere stuck in the middle, right? Because Dom's a heel,
He's clearly a
and
heel. JD
Rhea's
McDonough is a great lackey heel. He's turned into a really good lackey.
Rhea's a great face right now. I mean,
By herself, people cheer her.
they cheer her and they're booing Becky, and Becky was supposed to be the face, and they were giving Becky the business, and then cheering for Rhea. She's just too
So
good.
let's pivot to that match. First match of WrestleMania, night one. Rhea Ripley retains against Becky Lynch in 17 minutes here.
Yeah.
What did you think of that match? Some of the crowd reactions. You were there for it live.
The entrance was cool and Rhea was cool. I think Becky, it actually looked kind of sloppy, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like there was some stuff that wasn't going right in there. And Becky kept trying to play face when she's getting booed rather than switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
And Rhea was just doing pretty well. I thought it was okay for an opener. I wasn't blown away by it, to be honest with you.
They gave him 17 minutes, which was more than Gunther and Sammy got, more than LA Knight and AJ Styles got, more than Io Sky and Bailey got.
Maybe a little too long then.
Maybe it went a little too long. This is the one on my list. I had it as number 5 for our preview that I would have bumped in revising it. I don't think this was a great match. Some of that may have been the just the confusion where Becky was like, they weren't going to do a double turn there. Apparently Rhea by herself is still baby faces like you're mentioning. Becky Lynch, it was a little sloppy getting into it. The announce table was saying Becky Lynch had strep throat and a 102-degree fever. And it was 45 degrees and a little windy outside wrestling there. I'm going to rant here for like 30 seconds because this is getting ridiculous. We are less than a year away from LA Knight being held off TV because he was perfectly fine, but failed a COVID test. Now Becky Lynch is like legitimately sick with a 102-degree fever and something that can be contagious. And they're like, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Wrestle outdoors in 40-something degree weather.
Right.
Like, it's a joke. That this is why people don't believe this nonsense, because the internal logic doesn't make any sense.
It's funny because strep throat's nasty,
like watching
too.
A terrible wrestling match and going, none of this makes sense. It's fake. So maybe that was part of it. Was Becky Lynch was apparently really feeling under the weather.
Yeah, if Becky's under the weather and she can't perform, then I'm sure there's somebody that they could slot in. It's not like they really did a lot with that rivalry anyway.
No, it was almost on the back burner
so
for a while.
I don't know. Give somebody else. I guess maybe it got so close to the day of. Maybe they're thinking, oh, I'll feel better. She wakes up, she feels 10 times worse. But you still got to put on a good match.
Nobody who was ready to go into that slot as a stand-in. Because a lot of the other top stars on the women's side were already booked. They couldn't do a Nia Jax repeat that quickly, of Elimination Chamber that quickly. So, or maybe just not go 17 minutes with it.
Right.
Maybe make this the match that you let them warm up backstage, get out there, get the blood flowing, and this goes 13-ish instead of 17-ish.
Well, actually kind of explains Becky's performance, because I was looking at it like, it looks sloppy from her end. And
yeah, like she just wasn't fast enough. Like when you have a fever and strep throat, you're just a little off with doing things at top speed. You feel like you're even 95% speed isn't good enough in a WrestleMania match against Rhea Ripley.
Oh yeah.
It just looks a little off.
Anything else? Let's see here. We just talked about a lot of different WrestleMania matches. Did we miss any?
Of the matches that we had on our boards, what did you think of Uso versus Uso? You had that on your board.
I thought that was going to be great, and I'm not so sure it was. I thought it was pretty good, but just okay. I looks like they were trying to do a lot of the bloodline stuff with the slow building, like, oh, I'm your brother, blah 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 blah, and they stop with that, and then I actually kind of like that. Um, it felt like it just didn't have a lot of time. Uh, and then I also saw a lot of super kicks that weren't where they were like no selling the super kicks.
Absolutely. They gave him 11 minutes. And, instead of doing the standoff of punches, at one point they're doing is exchanging super kicks. I'm like, can you bury Shawn Michaels' finisher anymore?
Right.
So this one, I worried that we'd be seeing too much of a mirror image between these two guys, even though they're both great performers. And I kind of got that feeling that this was Spot Festy looking in a mirror.
Yeah.
This was too Spot Fest and looking in a mirror. And Jay winds up winning it, which may have been another surprise. Because I thought you had a great fantasy booking point that if Jay wins this, if Jimmy wins this, then maybe he's set up for an early feud against Cody Rhodes in the event that Cody wins the big belt, which he did. So now it looks like Jimmy's not even elevated to where he could go after Cody right away. Like no one would buy that.
Yeah.
As far as anything else on this card, Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi versus what remains of Damage Control, Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Kairi Sane. This went 8 minutes. It would have been a marginal match on a random SmackDown.
Yes, they had two of those. They had that match that was marginal, and then the Rey Mysterio, Dom Mysterio tag match. That was kind of a clunker that they had. The only real positive was Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson in that, but outside of that, it was kind of a clunker.
Yeah, so you got a sort of a clunker in this 6-woman tag match, which may have been why the crowd was kind of dead for a while. Because like right in a row, we got let's see here. After the Women's World Championship match where Rhea beats Becky with the Riptide for the pinfall there, we get the 6-pack ladder match, which I thought was a lot of fun. It was going to be a mess. It was messy, but it was appropriately messy. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
R-Truth and
R-Truth was like one of the most over people of that night.
He was
going crazy for R-Truth.
He gets the belts for his team, the Raw belts. Earlier, Grayson Waller had gotten the SmackDown belts for him and Austin Theory. This match wound up going 17 minutes. It was 7 minutes to the SmackDown belts and then another 10 for the Raw belts. And then we got Rey Mysterio and Andrade now, who's in LWO apparently, versus Santos Escobar and Dominic Mysterio. This match goes 11 minutes. Rey hits a top turn splash on Santos for the pin. After looks like Santos was going to use a steel chair, but two enormous luchadors came out of the crowd wearing Philadelphia Eagles Rey Mysterio masks. Turned out later to be Jason Kelsey, recently retired Jason Kelsey, and the not yet retired Lane Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct. Still active in the NFL.
So they interfere to help Mysterio and Andrade. That was a cheap pop, though. Was this match, did you get the feeling that the crowd was dead for it, or were they into it?
They were kind of dead for it because, they were pretty dead for it, to be honest with you. Just because, like, if it was Dom and Rey Mysterio, they would have been way more into it. But it just felt diluted with the tag team. Andrade's out there, and I'm like, okay. But really, once the gimmick ending happened, that brought it together, though. That we at least got the gimmick ending and some pretty cheap heat.
Yeah, some cheap pop there for the Philadelphia Eagles being out there in Philadelphia. Follows that up with the Uso versus Uso. Was the crowd? I mean, early on the crowd is into with the no yeet exchanges of punches, but was it even at 11 minutes? Was the crowd tiring of the dueling super kicks and just?
I think they just didn't give that one enough time. I think they didn't give it enough time.
You think that one would have been better with more time?
Yeah. Because the crowd was into it. The crowd was definitely into it. These two, the Usos, they felt the vibe of the crowd. Like the crowd was really into the Jimmy Uso entrance. He probably had the best entrance of the night.
All right.
With the entire crowd was waving their arm and doing this thing when Jey Uso came out, and then Jimmy came out, and I put the one up because he's in the bloodline, but not a lot of people did the bloodline sign. But
You were a heel member of the audience.
this is true. I couldn't help myself. I like Jimmy. I like the bloodline.
Okay, so then how about the 6-woman tag that followed Jay versus Jimmy? Was the crowd into that?
There was a little pop for Jade when she got tugged in,
Okay.
but not really. This match seemed pretty thrown together, and
shortest of WrestleMania, 8 minutes, even though there's 6 people involved.
Yeah, it wasn't such a great match, but it was kind of cool entrances, I guess, because you had the girls coming lifted from the sky, and the Kabuki Warriors doing their, I don't know, Asian thing.
Mhm.
But
yeah, this could have been a marginal match on SmackDown.
yeah, it wasn't good.
I wasn't impressed.
And the crowd wasn't too into it either. And maybe I'll talk about that in a little bit with the crowd, or maybe
crowd recovered for Gunter Sammy though, and then they remained hot, even though it was a very long Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins match on night 1.
Everyone was there to see The Rock.
Okay.
The Rock was there. The Rock was getting cheers over Cody. Cody didn't get much of a pop, honestly, compared to The Rock. But it's because it's The Rock. Because you basically have, and I'll just explain what the crowd was like. You have a bunch of normies in the crowd. You have normal people that don't watch wrestling all the time. So they just barely know who Cody Rhodes is. And then The Rock comes out. So they're cheering for The Rock. They're going to cheer for who they know.
Like, that's the WrestleMania effect, right? Because WrestleMania is the one pay-per-view of the year that's a pop culture target audience rather than a pro wrestling target audience, right?
75,000 people in the stadium. They're not all going to be big wrestling fans. The people I went with before we were going were watching YouTube clips of Stone Cold Steve Austin in the 90s. We were like, they don't keep up with it, right?
Okay.
So there's so many normies in the crowd, normal people that don't watch wrestling every week, that I feel like The Rock got a big pop as a result, but
Okay. Second shortest match of WrestleMania, 8.5 minutes. Philadelphia street fight, Snoop Dogg on commentary, Bubba Ray Dudley as the special referee. It's the 6-man tag match, The Pride, Bobby Lashley, Angelo Dawkins, and Montez Ford versus the Final Testament, Karrion Kross, Akam, and Razar.
I'll be right back, Tom.
Triple teamed. Montez Ford hits a top turn splash on Karrion Kross through a table, allowing Bobby Lashley to make the cover for the pinfall. Karrion Kross, I thought, looked good in this match. He looked strong for a long time. He got into it with Bubba Ray Dudley, pushing him for a while. So Bubba puts on his Bubba Ray glasses, as if he's going into character there. At one point, they set up Karrion Kross for Angelo Dawkins to do the headbutt to the nether regions off of the top rope. And Bubba Ray does the "What's up?" cue in for it, which the crowd in Philadelphia loved. This ECW references went over big time in Philadelphia. So even though there's a lot of people in the crowd who may be more pop culture than pro wrestling, there were enough people in the crowd with ECW Philadelphia roots who caught all of the wonderful ECW references here. And this was one of them. I will save my commentary on maybe the best move of the match when that comes. And the only other match we didn't get to was the triple threat for the United States Championship. Logan Paul retaining against both Randy Orton and Kevin Owens in that triple threat match. Logan Paul does use the brass knuckles on Randy, but Randy kicks out. He goes for another big right hand, but Randy RKO's him, but can't cover. Now Randy gets the knucks away from him, but doesn't want to use them. What a huge babyface move from Randy Orton, handing the brass knuckles to the ref. Like, I'm not going to do it. And maybe that costs Randy the match. Eventually, somebody in a prime bottle pulls Randy Orton out of the match there. Randy RKO's the poor mascot on the announce table. Kevin Owens hits the pop-up powerbomb on Logan, then stunners Randy, but only gets a 2 count. Now, when Kevin Owens throws Randy into the ropes again for another pop-up powerbomb attempt, Randy hits the RKO. Logan fights with Randy, throws him into the ring post to the floor, and hits the top turn frog splash on a fallen Kevin Owens for the pinfall. So I just kind of went rapid fire through the 2 matches we didn't talk about, each of which was a non-traditional match, a 6-man tag and a triple threat for the U.S. title. What did you think of either one of those matches, outcomes, what went on in them?
I missed the U.S.
Gimmick.
title. Who won the Logan Paul match? Did he retain?
Logan Paul retains.
30.
Logan, he uses the brass knucks at one point, but not for the finish. So he kind of retains clean. In a sense, which is good for Logan Paul. It probably speaks well to the future he has in the WWE, that they wanted to give him some sort of a cleanish looking finish. I mean, he's still a heel. He still tried to cheat. He still had his lackey out there in the Prime Energy suit.
Yeah.
But the finish was clean pinfall.
Well, I'll tell you what, I missed that match. And then, what was the other one you were talking about? The
Philadelphia street fight with Bubba Ray Dudley as the special referee. I thought Karrion Kross looked strong here because it took like a triple team to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
The ECW references were fun for the crowd. There were, like I was saying, there's enough people, even though this is the pop culture pay-per-view, it is Philly. There were enough Philly hardcore people in the crowd where there was an audible rise out of any ECW reference.
I like the Bubba Ray get to tables thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was fun. Best wrestling move of this match, B-Fab doing a leg sweep from the apron on Scarlett through 2 tables on the floor.
That's right. Oh, this is B-Fab's big coming out. She was almost out of the company, it felt like, which was
back in the Pride with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. And yeah, B-Fab hit a big boot on Scarlett, which Scarlett took well. And then like the best wrestling move of the night from this match, at least, was B-Fab side Russian leg sweeping Scarlett off the apron through a table on the floor.
Right.
Yeah, 2 women who weren't even part of the match give you the wrestling move of the night.
Right. Yeah. Well, Dom, I think we talked in great detail here about both nights of WrestleMania. You think it's
Italian goodbye time, and I want to ask you more as we mosey on down about being there live.
Oh, really? You don't want to do a thumb drive for night 1 and night 2?
You know what? How could I have been so callous? There was so much wrestling talk. Yes. What would be the road to WrestleMania without drive time? We have to put a bow on this. It's time for thumbs up or thumbs down. You and I are going to distill this entire thing into not a star rating, not a number grade, not a letter grade. We're taking this match pass, fail, no ties either.
Mm-hmm. So, this is the thumb drive. We're not Dave Meltzer. We're going to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down for each show. You want to do one for night 1 and night 2?
I guess we could.
Yeah, let's do night 1.
That's something I hadn't thought of. Okay, night 1.
Ready?
Sure.
3, 2, 1.
I'll thumb up. And now you were there in person. So is your thumbs up tainted? Tainted is the wrong word. Influenced by the fact that you got to 100%. See all of this great stuff live.
Yeah, it was so fun to go to the show. It was cool to get out and about and see all the stuff, see all the people. The vibe was really good in the stadium. Usually I go there for Eagles games, and the vibe can be a little off sometimes. Angry people screaming about football and yelling at the refs, and maybe a little too overserved. And I didn't get any of that vibe at the link when I went for
Okay.
WrestleMania, which was fun. So that's why I gave it a thumbs up. How about you?
I give it a thumbs up, even though I was watching from home. Between my favorite match, which was Gunter Sammy, and a main event that delivered better than I thought it would. Uh, I say, that's enough for night one to get a thumbs up for me. If my favorite match happens and it's really great, and the main event is a pleasant surprise, I think that's enough to give it a thumbs up. Also, the 6-pack ladder match was fun. I'm not going to say that this was a clinic of pro wrestling, but for what it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
So
that's
this was a solid enough thumbs up. I enjoyed it.
all right. So let's do night two.
Night two.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Night two is a stronger thumbs up for me. LA Knight, AJ Styles was a great match. I wanted to see it. It delivered. Io Sky Bailey, even though I already wanted to see that match, I thought they over delivered, which, you worry about sometimes when you're already going into a match expecting it to be really good. That was fantastic. And the main event, Cody Rhodes winning the belt and how he won the belt. I thought we got a lot of really good pro wrestling on night two. Some great finishes. Even if maybe you knew the ultimate outcome to some of them, the way they did it, I thought was worthy of praise. WWE, if they didn't knock it out of the park with a grand slam, it's at least a stand-up triple.
Yeah. Totally agreed. I think second night was better, even though I was at the first night.
Okay.
My wife was watching with me and she said, "Why didn't we get tickets for the second night?" I was like, "Well, I messed up. I don't know." But
Because it's another $300 and something and an even later night of getting to bed for work on Monday morning.
right. It really was the Monday morning effect. So yeah, so night two was a better series of shows, and totally agree with you. It's really the last two matches. It was what is usually the bathroom break, the women's match, with right before the main event, was awesome. It's probably the best wrestling match, one of the best wrestling matches of the year.
Yeah.
And then the main event had all the sports entertainment stuff you could possibly want. Very, very feel good. And everybody liked all the throwbacks of the people coming back in and out. And it left a good taste in my mouth, I'd say, when I was done with WrestleMania this year. So that's our thumb drive, Dom. I think we could kind of move on here and we could do a little bit more of the cheap heat, or I should say Italian goodbye stuff.
We can mosey on down here. I want to ask you about being there live in the stadium, because I've got a shared screen here. What an enormous picture of Nick Khan. This is from WrestleZone. Nick Khan teases the possibility of future WrestleMania events being held in late April. And the reason for this is they like doing WrestleManias in large football type stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, we're a little too large here on the screen from what I can see.
Let me try a different option.
The share is on full screen. Should be whatever that 80% deal is with you and I on the side, because I think we're getting in the way. Yeah, there we go. We're getting in the way of some of what's on the screen. I didn't want to highlight
sorry.
something.
So you start that again.
No problem. Yeah, Nick Khan's there. Big old picture of Nick Khan. This is from WrestleZone. Nick Khan teasing the possibility of future WrestleMania events being held in late April. And it's because WWE likes to have WrestleManias in football stadiums. And football stadiums in the Northeast or the North, chilly weather in early April or late March, you get what you got this year in open air Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, which is night one was overcast, barely 50 degrees by the time it started. By the time it finished, it was in the 40s with, winds at around maybe double digits. It wasn't, gusty hurricane or anything like that, but it was chilly out there. This could not have been easy on the wrestlers. This could not have been easy on the crowd. What was it like to be out there in a cold weather WrestleMania? You don't expect to be wearing big old winter coats at a wrestling show, do you?
And there was, I would say this, the cold weather and the wind specifically in the link. You're really close to the river. When it's windy,
Okay.
it's windy. So that affected the crowd. The link also doesn't really retain noise at well. So the link it's not like, even the stadium before the link, Veterans Stadium, actually retained noise better. And that place was a dump. But
Okay.
it's just a kind of a flaw of the link, is it doesn't retain noise as well. Now you could go to an Eagles game and it's gonna be loud as hell because everyone's screaming like maniacs. But it's not necessarily
Yeah.
because of the stadium design. So it can be
Mhm.
quiet in there. I had some things, some observations from my end. Number
Go for it.
one, the stadium was so dark at night because they didn't have on the lights in the stadium. They only had their own lights. So it was just very dark. So I feel like
Oh.
that takes away from the liveliness of the crowd. You're getting tired up there, you know? Um,
All right. I see that. What a neat detail that maybe our listeners and watchers aren't aware of. Yeah, yeah. Tell us in the chat or in the comments if you attended either night of WrestleMania. What was it like? Was it too dark in the stands for you, and or too chilly, windy for you to be sitting
Number
out there for
two,
4 something hours?
the sound system was horrible. So whenever they would come out to their theme
Okay.
songs, something must have gone horribly wrong with the sound because it sounded like it was in mono. And it wasn't, believe it or not, it wasn't loud enough when the theme songs would
Okay.
hit. So the speakers were really bad, and I don't know if they use the same speakers for indoors and outdoors, and it just didn't hit as hard as you normally would expect. And that's a lot coming
Hmm.
from me because I don't really like loud music per se. But few more things.
Sure.
Um, Now on night one, not having to do with the stadium, wrestlers not playing to the crowd. Um, they were just kind of going out there and doing their moves. They weren't doing
Okay.
a lot of stuff to kind of get the crowd into it, heckle the crowd, do the 10
Hmm.
punches. Bianca Belair did the 10 punches in one of her matches. I was like, yes, Bianca, you get it.
Mhm.
Um, but they weren't playing to the crowd enough, which I think led them to be a little bit more quiet. You get a big crowd like that, it's like boiling water, right? So the more water, the longer it kind of takes to boil. So you have to do some extra things to get it boiling. Um,
Okay.
and then my last piece is number 4, normies. Normal people were there at the stadium. So, as a result of normal people, like, oh, WrestleMania's in town. Yeah, I used to watch it. Let's go check it out. They probably don't know most of the wrestlers, and we're just sort of trying to feel out what the chants were or even what to do. So, a big crowd like that brings a lot of casual, normal people. So that's just something that.
Okay, I do recall going to a concert early on in the Link's lifespan there and noticing the same thing, that it's terrible for audio quality. And that
Really
was many
bad.
years ago. So yeah, I mean, I watching on TV, obviously the sound is perfect coming,
Yeah.
because they're sending they're not taking the stadium mix
Mhm.
all the time.
Mhm.
They're probably got it going through a board that you're hearing when you're watching the premium live event on Peacock or wherever else you're watching it. Um,
It's
so
from
for
whatever app they're playing, it goes directly out. It doesn't go from the stadium, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're feeding the audio straight into their TV feed. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that was good there. That's interesting to see. Okay, this may be a case where you just can't do WrestleManias in the North. Quote here from Nick Khan: "We're hoping to have a WrestleMania 2026 indoors, or maybe a little later in April. We're going through that now. Too much outdoor early April WrestleMania events. And speaking of, we're going through that now with Philadelphia, and that it was a chilly week in Philadelphia. It was chilly. Maybe the answer to this is just play up SummerSlam and have that be your to where that could be a big enough open air event, and save that for some of your northern cities. You know, if you want WrestleMania in a football stadium, it's got to be Southern California, the South, or a dome, and give other pay-per-views to the northern cities, the Northeast, the Midwest, even kind of the Great Plains areas, those areas, the Northwest,
or
just the weather.
Or you could just shift the day that you do it. A couple more weeks and you'd be fine.
I think that's what they're talking about. I think the problem is that the Royal Rumble's in January, then you do Elimination Chamber, and then like 6 weeks later, you've got WrestleMania. If you push it even more, what do you do? Do you try to throw another B-level pay-per-view in there?
Right.
Does that take away from Elimination Chamber? Does that seem rushed? What does it do to the rest of your pay-per-view schedule? Because now Backlash has to start later, and whatever else you're doing in the middle has to start later. Do you lose a pay-per-view because you're going late April instead of late March, early April? So I think WrestleMania first weekend of April or last weekend of March, kind of, it's the beginning of springtime almost. I think that's the time for it. I like having it there. And I think the setup they have right now, they'd have to tinker with more than just WrestleMania if they move the date of WrestleMania. Now, it doesn't mean they can't do it. They got a lot of people making the big bucks over there at TKO Holdings.
Yeah,
right. Think about this stuff, but I don't think it's as simple as just saying, "Oh yeah, let's do WrestleMania 3-4 weeks later." Oh yeah, that's so easy. Why didn't we do that before?
Right.
I think there's other moving parts involved.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It'd be a shame if they just only stick to southern cities or cities with domes, because I think in the outdoor football stadium it's cooler than the indoor football stadium. Just because
especially because WrestleMania can draw 75,000 people.
Right.
With all the normies.
With all the normies, baby.
Oh, you like wrestling now? Oh, because it's WrestleMania season, you can watch it?
Yeah, the normies.
So, if we have any normies in the Don't Bury the Lead audience tonight, my somewhat apologies, just having a little fun here. Hey, subscribe to Don't Bury the Lead. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chats what you think of WrestleMania and the timing for the time of year. The big stadiums that they like for WrestleMania, and what else ever you thought of it. One more little piece there. The Rock came back as the final boss. Apparently, Samoa Joe merchandise for AEW had the final boss. This is from January. Did the WWE and The Rock just maybe accidentally or intentionally rip off the final boss gimmick from Samoa Joe?
Yeah, you told me about this, and I was like, really? And I'm seeing it now. I think there's no way that Samoa that The Rock took the final boss. Only because I don't think that he's going to be like watching AEW that closely and being like, "Ooh, the final boss, that's a good idea."
It's a video game term. We all know it from video games. Does it just look a little corny now that you realize that, okay, the other guys already had that idea?
And it's their champ.
Yeah. For their actual champ, the guy with the belt.
He's also the final boss. And look, the tweet says the final boss.
Yes. Check out this Samoa Joe shirt that just arrived at shopaew.com on January 17th.
Wow.
Before The Rock came out before the Royal Rumble, before Elimination Chamber, before the WrestleMania press conference kickoff in Vegas before the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it. I also think that they probably didn't copy AEW here, but just the fact that both major wrestling promotions had the same idea and AEW did it first. It's like,
Right.
WWE, don't you have people at least keeping an eye on the other guys, especially since the WWE loves, filing lawsuits going back 25, 30 years to the NWO era
Oh, yeah, for sure.
about, stolen intellectual property.
Yeah.
That Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were like intellectual property of then the WWF.
Yeah, they copyright people's names. Cody Rhodes was Cody in AEW. He couldn't use his full name.
Yeah.
That's how fickle they get.
Yeah, wouldn't you think that a corporation, a publicly traded corporation, as litigious as these guys are,
Mm-hmm.
would at least be keeping an eye on that. Who's the better final boss, Samoa Joe or The Rock?
Ooh. Samoa Joe has been great recently. And The Rock's final boss seems to make a little bit more sense because he could say, "Oh, you beat Roman Reigns, but you haven't beaten me," that kind of thing.
I think The Rock's makes more sense because he's actually on the board of directors for the
Oh,
corporation.
yes. Also, he owns the company or whatever. He has a small
His
share.
maybe makes more sense there, but Samoa Joe's he's the final boss in a wrestling sense.
Mm.
I'm going to have to tilt this one to Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is the real final boss.
I like it, Tom. I like it. Well,
The Rock could have come up with something else.
anything else from the Cheap Heat piece here, mini Cheap Heat?
Nothing else, just those two things as we mosey on down with the Italian goodbye here that actually had to do with WrestleMania and WrestleMania itself. So you normally Cheap Heat is when we go, WWE, AEW, and beyond, because the wrestling world is bigger than just the program that we watch and recap. But tonight it was just a couple of extra tangent stories that happen to do with WrestleMania. So
Right. Hey, Dom. So here's the deal.
sure.
I usually like to do the Italian goodbye. I'm leaning more toward an Irish goodbye. I
There we
know
go. We've
March
been
has just
going an
passed.
hour and a half. WrestleMania was a lot of fun.
Yeah, WrestleMania was a blast. Everyone, if you're watching now, click the subscribe button. We have a bunch of videos up from WrestleMania. If you want to see my viewpoint from my seat, we have a preview from WrestleMania. You can see how wrong we were about certain things and how right we were about certain things.
Grade
And
us.
grade us, exactly. And going forward, we'll be here every Friday night with SmackDown. We're looking forward to keeping the ball rolling in the new season of SmackDown here. So, Dom, as always, thanks for doing this with me. Really appreciate it. It's a little unique night. And for everybody else out there watching, appreciate you joining and have a great rest of